It is a beautiful day, everyone. Happy Monday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins officially got paid last night. Let's talk about it here on No Buts About It. Hello, it is Josh Butts here from No Buts About It. If you have not hit that subscribe button yet, go ahead and do that so you don't miss any of the NFL news that we're talking about on this page. Probably the biggest story of the day, though, and possibly the week, depending on what happens. It's still early. Is Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins are staying with the Cincinnati Bengals for pretty much the rest of this decade. And this news was originally reported on Friday by James Rapine of Cincinnati Bengals Talk. He said, "Hey, the deals are done. It's just, little nitpicky stuff here and there that they are working on." I believe him. Yeah, I don't know him personally, but I've talked to him quite a bit online. He seems like a pretty honest guy. He doesn't just throw stuff at the wall to hope it sticks. And then Sunday night, the contracts came out, at least what the pay was. So Jamar Chase is making $161 million on a 4-year contract, and that puts him at $40.25 million annual average per year. That makes him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Tee Higgins is 115, also across 4 years, $28.75 million. That makes him the highest paid wide receiver 2 in the NFL. Combined, that's about $69 million annual average. A lot of money tied up into 2 players, which people were quick to point out, and that is a fair assessment. But is it a concern? Well, we're going to discuss that here in a little bit. But let's talk about how we got here first. How did we get to this point where we're paying both of these players so much? And what does it mean for the Cincinnati Bengals franchise? So I have been critical of how the Bengals have handled this franchise. Or handled these discussions, I should say. And I think it has been honest. I think it's been legitimate criticisms. I'm still not a fan of how it kind of got dragged out. I'm still not a fan of Duke Tobin getting up there and saying that Jamar Chase was 100% going to be the highest paid guy. I think dragging these things out, I think that waiting, I think, publicly negotiating like he did at the combine, I think a lot of that did cause these contracts to, be higher than what they may have necessarily been. Now, Jamar was probably going to be the highest paid no matter what in the league. Obviously, Myles Garrett getting extended, that bumped it up, but he was still going to be, probably 36, 37 million at the minimum. That was probably the floor because of what the Justin Jefferson contract was. And then that Myles Garrett contract just bumped it up another $3 million, $4 million per year. So I was mad in the moment, but when you kind of look back at it, it's not as much. It's not as painful, I guess. But I think there was a lot of pressure on the Bengals to get these things done. You had Joe Burrow out there getting it, saying, "I want Jamar and Tee." You had the fans out there. There were fans saying, if Tee Higgins is not on this team next year, I am not renewing my season tickets. I am not going to games. Whether that was honest or not, we'll never really know. There was so much pressure on these teams to get it done. And it forced them to, actually have to negotiate, actually move into the 21st century. Actually have to, make these somewhat modern style contracts. Now, as I'm recording this, Not all the details are out. In fact, the numbers just came out literally like 9 hours ago, right as I was headed to work. If I hadn't been going to work, this video would have been out last night. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And I think the really big thing was T switching agents. He switched to MarrChase's agent, Rocky Arkana. And I have no idea if I'm saying that right. I hope that I am. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Rocky Arkana, though. He is MarrChase's agent, has been since the draft. That's Jamar and him together. And I believe it was Tom Pelissero who reported it. He said, if there is not a T deal done, then there is no Jamar deal. He held the Bengals to that. That was the leverage he used. He said, these two guys want to stay together. These two guys want to play together. Joe Burrow is publicly saying, I want both these guys back. Let's make it happen. And I love that. I love that for the agent. The agent could have easily said, like, hey, I am going to get the highest paid non-quarterback contract done. That's going to be huge for me in MarrChase. But he knew what T wanted. And he could have easily gotten more money with Tee Higgins. He could have easily gone somewhere else and said, hey, this team the Patriots are offering this amount of money for Tee Higgins. The Chargers are offering this amount of money for Tee Higgins. Let's go there. I get a better commission. I get a better this. I get a better that. And he probably would have been right, especially after Chris Godwin went back to the Buccaneers. Teams would have played a premium for Tee Higgins. But like Tee Higgins said, the agent works for him, and what Tee Higgins wanted was to stay with the Cincinnati Bengals. And it worked out. They got those guys done. They got those guys back. And, it ultimately, yes, it keeps T happy. It keeps Jamar happy. But most importantly, it's going to keep Joe happy. And Joe is the franchise. As long as Joe is happy, that is the most important part. And I find it kind of fun. I like this photo because you got T, Jamar, and Joe. But then also to the right there of looking at the screen, you have Mike Gesicki, who has also been extended, who Joe said he wanted. So Joe got 3 of the 4 guys he specifically said he wanted back. He's already gotten them back. The outsider there is Trey Hendrickson, who the Bengals are reportedly still working on a deal with. Like, the Bengals didn't say, okay, we put all of our money into T and Jamar. We can't get anything for Trey. It looks like they could still get a deal done with Trey, which would be huge. So you got Trey Hendrickson still out there. Who knows what's going to happen with that? I think his agent might have overvalued him a little bit, to be honest. I think he might have promised the Bengals a first-round pick and then some, and that just wasn't going to happen with the contract. But we'll see. We'll see. Let's not speak on things we don't know about. We're talking about Jamar and T here. Having T on this team makes the Cincinnati Bengals better. They're just a much better team. It opens up Jamar. It opens up Andre. It opens up the run game. It opens up the tight ends. Just having them both out there is so good. Now, it comes at a cost, obviously. Having both of these guys playing on this team comes at a cost. And right now, it is looking like it's going to be $69 million a year. That means that when the Bengals are looking at positions like defense, when they're looking at their, offensive line, we've got some guards that we need still. Right now, it's Cody Ford and Cordell Volson are our starting guards. I don't think that's where I know Bengals fans don't want it to be the situation that we're in, and I don't think that's where the Bengals want to be heading into the season. And I love Cody Ford. I'm a big Cody Ford fan. I'm thankful that he was on the team last year. He came and filled in all over the place, but that's not the 2 guys you want starting up there. So now you have to look at what's left in free agency and what's left in the draft. And this is what I said, or was kind of alluding to when I said, why are you taking so long? When you take this long, you don't know what's on your team. Because if this didn't work out with T, I think Jamar was always going to work out. But if this didn't work out with T, then you've got to look at, okay, what are we going to do with wide receiver? That's something we need to look at in the first round. Is that something we need to look at the second round? What do we think we can get away with here in the long run? If we're the Cincinnati Bengals, we just drafted Jermaine Burton in the third round last year. Do we think he's going to, turn it around, figure it out? Now we don't have to ask those questions for a really long time, and that's good. But you still obviously do have those guard positions. That defense is a big one. We all know about the defense, but T does make this a better team. Guard, you can answer that in free agency. Tevin Jenkins is still out there. He could. I've said it before. I'll say it again. He could be this season's Mekhi Becton. Has a ton of upside, but has had injury issues in the past. That was what my concern was with Mekhi Becton. I know a lot of Bengals fans wanted him. He even came and visited with the Bengals last year. And I was like, I don't know. The injury issues concern me. And then he goes to the Eagles and he plays phenomenal. So, I kind of ate crow on that one. So looking at Tevin Jenkins, I see something similar. I'm kind of in this time. But he's visiting Seattle today. We'll see what happens. Brandon Shreve. Another guy could possibly come in. Probably not your long-term solution, but, this would allow you to either go a year with a starting guard and draft a guard next year, or it would allow you to maybe draft a guard later, allow him to kind of learn behind Brandon, and then start next year and move on, or 2 years from now, see what happens. But it would at least open you up a little bit. That's what the Bengals are going to need to be open to, is working around these types of things, because now they've got all this money tied up, obviously. And then, of course, you've got the draft. The Bengals have to nail the draft, specifically in the trenches. There are two teams that the Bengals fans have been pointing at constantly on X as saying, well, these two teams pay their two receivers well. Why can't the Bengals? Well, first of all, the Bengals are paying them more and their quarterback more. But also, they draft really well. And that's the Eagles and the Lions. The Eagles and the Lions have drafted phenomenally well. And that's what the Bengals need to learn to do. Specifically the Eagles. And that was why they were able to win, the championship last season, or this past month ago. They drafted well. They built up their D-line. They built up their defense on rookie contracts. They paid their offense. They drafted defense, and it worked out. Bengals have a lot of guys on defense. We don't really know what they are. For example, Myles Murphy. I'm not completely out on Myles Murphy yet. He's a former first-round pick. I don't know what he is. You've got Joseph Asai, who they just extended because, they still really don't know what he is. Final 7 games of the season, he had 5 sacks. Jordan Battle even. What is he going to be a future starter safety? I think so, but you got to get him some playing time. So there are positions that are already on the team that we can learn about, that we can work with, that we can kind of, have some fun with, flexibility. But we have to figure that out fast. And if those players aren't the answer, then we have to draft their replacements or find their replacements in some other way, because now we have the keys. We have the keys to the car. We have Joe, Jamar, and T locked down for their prime. Don't have to worry about that. And even more so, if you lock down this guy again for the next 2 to 3 years, that just adds on even more to that versatility of what you can work with in the draft. So I'm super excited about this. One other thing I forgot to mention. The Bengals, this is going to go overlooked, I think, but the Bengals appear to have actually given both T and Jamar guarantees into their second year, which if you're not a fan of the Bengals, you may be saying okay, big deal. All teams do that with their star players. Yeah, all teams except for the Bengals. The Bengals don't really like to do that often. And sometimes it works out, like with Sheldon Rankins. They didn't have really any guarantees with him. They cut him, and it wasn't a big deal because there were no guarantees in the second year. But with guys like T and Jamar, that they're going to be in their second year, third year. So those guarantees aren't really going to hurt you any. That was kind of the breaking point with Jesse Bates. They wouldn't guarantee that second year, it seemed. And so Jesse Bates walked and became a Falcon. I like that they broke that mold. Hopefully they continue that. And the next instance that we'll probably get a chance to see if they're willing to go that mile, hopefully, is Amarius Mims. When we have to lock him down, hopefully he turns into that all-pro, Pro Bowl right tackle. Maybe Jordan Battle, maybe he turns out amazing. I still have a ton of hype up for him, but we'll see what happens there. But I like that they took this next step. They're slowly and painfully becoming a 21st century NFL franchise. Now it's time to nail the draft. And you have options now. You have the option of going Kenneth Grant. You can go Darius Alexander if Kenneth Grant isn't there. Malachi Starks if you feel like you need to go safety and he's there. If you're not able to get a Trey Hendrickson deal done, maybe you go Mike Green. But, when you lock up your stars, that allows you to have more versatility. It allows the Bengals more freedom to work with stuff. I would say the next step is get Trey Hendrickson done. Then sign one guard. Just one guard. You don't have to sign both, just one guard. And these should be very easy steps. And I think most Bengals news outlets are going to be saying the same thing because it's a very simple process. Get the Trey Hendrickson deal done. And even if you don't get the Trey Hendrickson deal done, sign at least one guard. And then you go into the draft knowing what you have. And you know that you need a guard. And you know that you need a pass rush. And whichever one you prioritize, that's why they get paid the big bucks. But I think that this allows the Bengals to rest easier. I think it allows Joe to rest easier. And let's go into the rest of the offseason more optimistic. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it so much. If you have not, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about these extensions down below. I'm obviously super excited about them. I'm also super tired because I've been working all night, so I'm going to go to bed. But until next time, go do something nice for someone.